Hope that you're doing well. Today we're going to do a quick overview of the American Civil War. Now let's start with some of the strengths and the weaknesses for both the North and the South. Starting with the North, what does the North have going for them? What are their advantages? Number one, they've got all the industry in the North. All the factories but one that's in Virginia, are in the North, having more manufactured goods, better logistics. Overall, the North is going to be better supplied. That's an advantage in a war for sure. Number two, they have more men, and having more men means more soldiers, and General Grant's going to use that advantage very strongly later in the war. That's going to be helpful for the North. And then you've got President Lincoln's dynamic leadership. Now Lincoln, he's got to make some tough decisions in the war. He struggles to find a general to lead, but overall it's Lincoln's leadership that's going to hold the North together to continue fighting until the war is won. Now, of course, the North also has a good plan, a good strategy. That's the Anaconda Plan, right? And that means you blockade the southern ports and you split the South in half by capturing the Mississippi River. That goes into their advantages as well. Now, if you're the South, what are your strengths? Well, if you're the South, number one, you're fighting a defensive war. You don't have to go capture D.C. to win. All you have to do is hang in the war long enough so that you don't lose. It's kind of like the Americans in the American Revolution. They didn't have to go conquer and capture the city in London, and they didn't have to go capture England. They just had to hang in there long enough until Parliament and the King let them be free. That's the Southern strategy. Play defense until they leave us alone. Another strength for the South is, man, you're on your own soil, you're fighting in your own backyard. Generally, you fight harder and you know the land. That could also be a disadvantage because your own cities and your own farms are getting destroyed. And then the South has a very real advantage that perhaps a country from England like Britain or something would join them to get back at the United States. And that's a big advantage for the South. Now, when we get into the war, how does things play out? Well, your first battle is a Confederate victory. The first battle of Bull Run, the North comes out, there's high hopes, people come out to watch from D.C., and boy, it's a massacre. One, the weapons are much more deadly. We have rifling that puts a spin on the bullets. You have the mini ball, a very dangerous, deadly weapon, and you have a lot more violence, and the medical system is not ready to, be there to assist in that manner. So it's a bloody sight for those watching, and it's also very embarrassing for the Northerners as they got whipped by the rebels. Stonewall Jackson makes his debut there. When he shows up by train, he stands as a Stonewall, gets the nickname Stonewall Jackson, and the North is defeated. And that's going to be the case for a while. That's 61. When we get into the battles of 62, the North is going to lose again as the South runs away with it. General Lee gets his big break when he takes over the southern defenses during the Peninsula Campaign. And McClellan is being very timid, and Lee continues to find ways to win. Lincoln goes through a whole slew of generals in the North, and Lee just continues to defeat each and every one. He's a brilliant strategist, especially when he's outnumbered. Okay, the turning point battles. Where do things start to turn around where the North comes back and wins the war? Because in 61 and 62, things are looking really rough. The only thing they have going for them is they win at Antietam, and that's important because Lincoln puts he writes up the Emancipation Proclamation, and that frees all the slaves in the South. Okay, that's important because he changes the purpose of the war. He says, listen, we're not fighting just to preserve the Union. We're fighting to end slavery. He adds that implication. And if you're Great Britain, now you don't want to join because you're the anti-slavery good guy, Great Britain. You look like the bad guy if you join the South. So now that takes away that advantage from the South that a European country might win. So Antietam's important. Even though it's basically a draw, it's important because of how Lincoln uses it. And then the North also wins at Shiloh. That's General Grant's big break in Shiloh out west. But, as far as where the location of that battle is, it's not that significant. Overall, for 61 and 62, the North is all losses. That's going to switch with the twin victories in 1863, one at Gettysburg, and then the next day on July 4th, 1863 at Vicksburg. Now, Gettysburg is big. General Meade defeats General Lee. General Lee makes his big blunder with Pickett's charge. He loses men that he can't replace. After this, General Lee will only be on the strategic defensive. And then capturing Vicksburg is huge because that was the last piece, to go ahead and secure the capturing of the Mississippi River. And when Grant captures Vicksburg, now the Mississippi River is secured. Now Lee is on the run. The South is going to have to play survival mode defense for the rest of the war. Through 64 and 65, General Lee now is on the run from Grant. Lincoln puts Grant in charge of hunting down General Lee. General Sherman for the North is going to march to the sea. He's going to tear up railroads and he's going to burn cities. And after a while, the South just can't take it anymore. The supposed Southern strengths are just only weakening as the war goes on, as they struggle with supplies and they can't replace the men like the North can. In the end, in April of 1865, General Lee's going to surrender, and that's it's officially, not officially, but it's going to wrap up the Civil War in that manner. In 1865, the Civil War ends, and that's your overview of the American Civil War.